Welcome everyone to German Tool Reviews. Today we have another vintage Fein restoration. I picked up this Fein oscillating multi-tool as part of a pair of non-working tools. I was told that these were both supercuts, but neither had an official Fein nameplate to identify it. I already tried to plug this in and it was dead on arrival. 90% of the time the issues with power tools are either the power source or the carbon brushes. Since there was no sound whatsoever from the tool, my first suspicion was the power cord or switch. After opening the housing cover, I had some suspicions that this may actually be a tool built from several other Fein tools. The fact that there is no nameplate on the tool just reinforced my suspicions. What I suspect is that the lower housing portion of the tool is from an MSF 636 oscillating sander because of the unique styles of the brush holders and the switch. I do suspect the head is from a supercut, either an AST LXE 636 or an FSN 400, because it uses a piston style mechanism to drive the oscillator, which I'll show you later. The pad used to hold the switch in place looks to have been repaired or glued back together. We'll have to find a replacement for this. These small removable covers were probably for additional accessories and not something you would typically see on a supercut housing. Looking at the electronics, there's nothing obvious that sticks out. It is always nice to see brass inserts instead of self-tapping holes on a power tool. Taking a look at the switch, it looks like it's another Marquardt switch that we saw on the ASK 636 repair. Knowing that the switch assembly is not sealed, I suspect that we may have another instance of dirty contacts. It looks like there's a date code of May 1992 on the switch, which helps dating the tool. I did test for continuity on the switch and was seeing 0 ohms on both poles, but I've been fooled by this before because the multimeter only uses a very small amount of voltage to test resistance. So what I tried next is to take the switch out of the circuit and wire the cord directly to the field windings using some Vago connectors. Since the unit powers up, the problem is at or before the switch. Let's disassemble the switch and see what we have. I would definitely say that those are some dirty contacts. It looks mainly like dust intrusion. Since this is the second switch that we have seen with the same issue, it looks like something to look at if you have problems with any of your old Fein tools. Next we'll take out and inspect the brushes and brush holders. It is nice to see that the brush holders have an L and an R marked on them, so you don't install them upside down. These springs for the brushes have definitely seen better days. It looks like a regular steel spring was used, which is why they are covered in rust. Taking a look at the carbon brush assemblies, they are not in the best condition, but certainly not the worst. I would say they're probably just over half gone. I do like the high temperature silicone insulation that was added and much prefer these ring terminals to the quick disconnects. Alright, let's dive into the gearbox now. I'm not sure of the purpose of this guard. I can't say whether it is a part that belongs to this tool or not. If we take a look into the gearbox, it definitely looks like this tool has been serviced before. The gearbox grease is definitely not 25-year-old grease and is not very dirty at all. You can also tell because the plastic guard for the field would be full of carbon dust if it was not regularly serviced. Taking out the field windings, we see a little bit of rust, but this would be expected for a tool of this age. Interesting how the ends of the windings are wrapped in what appears to be a resin-coated fabric or cloth. That is not something I normally see. Looking at the armature and commutator assembly, we have an SKF 607 bearing made in Italy. Now that we have everything apart, we can see how the oscillating works. One of the key parts is this off-center shaft, also known as an eccentric shaft, which creates a slight wobble as it spins. The second part is this piston assembly connected to the head. The shaft connects to the thrust bearings in the piston that will move the head side to side as the piston raises and lowers due to the eccentric shaft. These are some expensive parts in here due to strict tolerances that would be needed for this design. Look at the cost just to replace this piston part. Now that we're about as far as I want to go with this assembly, it's time to get cleaning. For the field windings and armature, I use this electrical parts degreaser. You do have to be careful with this stuff around some plastics as it will eat away at certain types. For the dirty switch contacts, I use this quick dry contact cleaner, which is safe to use on plastics. The plastic housings were scrubbed down to remove the grit. I know you all may laugh, but I have found that regular toothpaste is a good start for cleaning plastics because it is a mild abrasive. I usually use either a regular toothbrush or a nylon brush. Plus it makes the tool smell minty. To polish the plastics, I use this Novice 2, which does a good job of removing the micro scratches from the plastic. It's time to reassemble everything. I did notice that this version of the switch had a design improvement over the version that I saw in the 1980 Fein ASK 636 drill. One issue I had with that switch is that when I assembled it backwards for the first time, it actually reversed the functionality of the switch. This version has different size holes so you can't get it backwards. We'll add a couple of drops in 3-in-1 oil to these brush springs to hopefully prevent any further corrosion. I didn't see any damage to the cord, so I figured I could reuse it. This ended up being a mistake, more on that later. To replace the switch pad, I used one of these adhesive furniture sliders cut to size. I suppose a piece of weather stripping would work just as well. This is just to keep pressure on the switch to keep it from moving around. Put the cover back on and attempted to turn it on. Nothing happened. Thinking that I may have damaged something, I decided to bypass the switch again to duplicate the initial test using the Vago connectors. Nothing happened again. I used a non-contact voltage tester to verify there was in fact voltage present. Next I tested the voltage directly from the power cord. I was only getting around 11 volts AC, so it looks like the power cord is very suspect. I took the strain relief off the power cord and noticed that there was a break in the insulation, so it may have gotten pinched. I thought this was the problem, so I re-terminated the power cord and put everything back together again. Tried it a second time and it got nothing initially. Then I wiggled the cord and got to turn on very briefly. Then I became convinced that there's something wrong with this power cord. So I went to the store and picked up a replacement power cord, wired it up again, and tried it for a third time. So I learned my lesson to always replace the power cord on the tool no matter how good it looks. So let's test it out. No problems here. Another tool brought back from the dead. Hopefully you all enjoyed this repair of a vintage Fein oscillating multi-tool. I think I will call this the Fein on account of it being a bastardization of at least 2 different Fein tools. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.